Hey, this is Zach.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exoterra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exoterra caging here at Madagascar, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exoterra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exoterra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 50th episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Can't believe we're at 50. Pretty big deal. Yeah. As always, Clint is here, who just did the woohoo. So how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited for this episode. This is going to be a good one, real good one.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. And our guest tonight is a very appropriate guest because he's part of the founding pair of the Morelia Python network with MPR, and that would, of course, be Owen Mcintyre of Rogue Reptiles, the Colubrid guy that likes to pretend to like pythons every now and then. I will continue to bring that up every time he's on our show.
You need to say easy. Like, I still have we have to play the. Listen, I'll never be a boa guy, so we got to keep playing the other things against each other. They only got 3 species here of them, so yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, but Owen will be speaking with us here in a moment about Leoheterodon. So if you don't know what genus that is, that would be the Madagascar hognose snakes. Clint and I both have had several people reach out to us. You got to do a Mad Hog episode. You got to do one. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking about who breeds them, who's worked with them, who's been consistent with them. And the only person whose name kept popping up in my brain was Owen. So I thought it'd be great to bring MPR back for our 50th and then talk about a snake that everybody wants us to talk about. So that's going to be the focus here in a bit. But before that, we actually have quite a bit to talk about in our intro tonight. So I don't even know how we want to do this, Clint. So I'm going to turn it over to you because you've been very busy the past couple of weeks.
Oh my. Yes. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. So, I mean, right now, looking at my computer, I have more tabs open and things all over the screen because of how many things we have to talk about real quick. So, okay. We're going to start with the market update. Okay. Let's get this piece done. And I am happy to announce that the market update is being brought to you by the Show Me Reptile Show. The Show Me Reptile Show has become the largest show promotion now in the country. They are in, I believe, over 50 cities. Mickey Meyer, the owner of the Show Me shows, I've known personally for quite some time, and I am so happy to have them as a sponsor for Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. And I'm going to tell a story about Mickey real quick that this kind of set the tone for our relationship, I guess, and for my respect for him as a promoter right off the bat. Mickey runs the St. Louis Show Me Reptile Show, and I had heard good things about it. And, several years back, I reached out and I wanted to ask about becoming a vendor. And at that time, St. Louis may have been their only show, or they had very, very few, right? Just starting out. And so I asked about becoming a vendor, and Mickey's reply was not what the table fees were. It was not, any of the expectations out of a vendor, money, nothing. His reply was, "What kind of animals do you work with?" And I loved that, loved it. Yeah. And it was because he wanted to build shows that had more than what you usually, would find on tables. And, so when I told him what I worked with, he was like, absolutely, let's have you on board. He wanted more colubrids. Very excited to have Show Me, on board. Very excited for them to be a sponsor. And they will be the sponsor for the market update going forward. And just so we know, if you are looking for a show near you, here's what's coming down the pipeline now through April from Show Me. We've got on March 16th, Hampton, Virginia, Jackson, Mississippi. March 23rd, Oklahoma City and Paducah. So Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Paducah, Kentucky. On March 30th, Janesville, Wisconsin, Millbrook, Alabama, and Lebanon, Tennessee, which is basically Nashville. April 6th, you have Derry, New Hampshire, and St. Louis, Missouri. And there's a few of these that are actually 2-day shows, guys. April 13th, Shelbyville, Kentucky. April 20th, if you're looking for a show, you're going to find one because there's one in Atlanta, and that's a 2-day show. Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Tampa, Florida, and that's a 2-day show. Tulsa, Oklahoma, all hitting April 20th. And then it looks like April 27th, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and April 28th, Davenport, Iowa. So a lot of shows just from now through April, courtesy of Show Me Reptiles. Thank you much there. Okay, let's move now into some of the market changes that we've seen. In the past couple weeks, there have been, according to the Morph Market Movement, there are 1,286 fewer ball pythons than a couple weeks ago. So we're looking at a 3.1% change. All other pythons, there's a 60 change, so 2.6, not a whole lot there. Boas, 100, and those are Owen's favorite. We just established that.
Yeah, that was correct.
So got that in. Boas, looks like there's 148 fewer than 2 weeks ago, so 2.8%. And Colubrids, 250 fewer than 2 weeks ago, and that's down 4.1%, which continues to show, quite a bit of movement because we still haven't hit hatchling season. So. All in, the overall market, another 3.1% change, negative, meaning fewer listed, which is actually a positive because that means that many animals are sold, a total of 1,744. And we are still looking at the numbers are looking about the same, really, as far as colubrids, meaning out of the 5,881 colubrids that are listed, we've got 29.1% of those are corn snakes, and that's down. And there's 22 fewer than last show. Hognose are making up 33.9% of all colubrids listed now, and there are 57 fewer than a couple weeks ago. And this is really impressive here. So all other colubrids are now making up 37%. And that is down 171. So there's 171 fewer listed than there were 2 weeks ago. And that's down 7.3%. That was the biggest moving category over the past 2 weeks. So, that excites all of us because,
yes.
that means we're growing, people. We're growing.
Yeah.
So love it. Okay. So that's going to be very well. Before I move too far past or move past the market update, I want to reiterate that not only are we seeing online staying very steady, I can tell you retail is also booming right now. Shows. Not saying this because we now have a show sponsor. However, I continue to feel it at every show I'm going to. I'm seeing attendance is solid. Things are moving off of the tables. I continue to believe that a big push is individuals wanting to save that $50 per animal in shipping because of the disposable income limitation. But now I can actually put my money where my mouth is. And that is, after discussing with Mickey of the Show Me Reptile shows, he has confirmed what I thought that I've been seeing. And that is that show attendance through this first quarter so far in 24 is between 15 and 20% up compared to last year, same time. So show attendance is definitely picking up. And if you're looking for an outlet, that's definitely going to be one that you want to get involved with if you're not already. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. Good stuff. Okay. Well, I can now close one of these mini tabs that I've got open all over my computer
just
right
got
now.
a little bit faster.
Just a little bit lighter. That's right.
It's now like, oh, thank God. Yeah.
Okay, so I know that our listeners are interested in a very particular word that's been tossed around several times lately, and that is Colubrid Fest.
Colubrid Fest.
So let's give an update on Colubrid Fest. It has been an exciting week, has it not, Zach?
It has been. Let me give a little bit of a perspective. So I was on spring break last week, and I'm bouncing down a road in Florida that probably didn't have a name. And somehow I heard badink, and I look at my phone, and it's a message from Clint explaining what Colubrid Fest was going to be. And it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And there was, I have to admit, he knows this, there was like a moment of like, holy hell, that's what we're doing? And then it lasted literally half a second, and I was like, damn right, that's what we're doing. So, you know, like we keep saying, we like to jump off the cliff. We don't know how we're going to land till we do it. Hopefully it's not turning into a pile of mush. I don't think we're going to turn into a pile of mush. I think we're hoping we're going to stick this landing. So anyway, Take it away, Clint.
So I'm going to do a little bit of that same thing, Zach. Instead of just giving the update, I'm going to share with the listeners how this update came to be.
Yeah.
So my initial thought was I was going to put together as much kind of groundwork as I could and gather vendors, gather the cities that were most apt to, you know, for us to go do this. And I thought that I was going to need to take that package, so to speak, and then go sell it. And I don't mean sell it like get money. I mean, talk someone who knows what they're doing into doing this for us. Right. I thought I was going to have to go pitch this idea. And so I wanted to have all of the groundwork there so that I had my ducks in a row when taking it. And I knew who I wanted to take it to. And anyone listening, if you can put 2 and 2 together, you probably figured my plan was to take it to Mickey at Show Me Reptiles. But I still needed to get things together. Now, we put out a jot form document, and that is found on our Facebook page. And there's also a link for this document on metazotics.com. If you just click the links to get over to Colubrid and Colubroid Radio, where we talk about that, you'll find this because we do still need input. Okay. We're looking more for individuals who would like to be vendors for this. So we're continuing to gather names. But regardless, one of the questions on that document was what city or cities would you attend, vend, you know, and I had a list of the ones that were potential options. There was one city in particular that was chosen more than any other, you know, and we had, you know, a second and third place, but one was definitely the front runner. Coincidentally, Mickey messaged me and it just said, do it in, and it was that city. And that's all his message said. Didn't explain any more. It just do it in, and it says that city. And so I thought, well, I guess it's time for me to go ahead and reach out. So I called Mickey immediately, and that turned into probably about an hour and a half, 2-hour conversation in which, you know, Mickey started giving some ideas. And I said, Mickey, I don't think you understand, bud. I'm not looking for you to give me ideas. I'm looking for you to do this. I'm looking for you to come in and partner with us because we need someone who has this in their wheelhouse and can help make this a reality. And without hesitation, Mickey says, I'm in, all in, 100% in, whatever it takes. So I'd like to formally announce the collaboration between Colubrid and Colubroid Radio and Show Me Reptiles to make Colubrid Fest happen. Now, you also may be wondering why we're not saying the city yet. The reason is because, one, we need to ensure we have the venue locked down. And two, there is some kind of behind-the-scene piece. We'll just say a behind-the-scene piece that we want to take care of prior to announcing the city. Nothing bad, nothing for anyone to worry about, just something that we want to ensure is done, because we feel much better about it if we go do it in that way. The things we can share. 1, we are targeting September. When I told Mickey that my idea was, September of next year, maybe if it took 2 years, I don't know how long it takes to put this together. And he said, nope, we're doing it this year. He's that excited about it, because for him, it's getting involved in this education piece that we're going to explain in a moment. He was stoked to do this. This is 100% what he wants to do. So September of this year, keep your calendars open. We chose September because August is Daytona. And Daytona is a very large Colubrid, centric show. And we want to make sure that we're not attempting to do any kind of competition there. And then, of course, October is Tinley. And while Tinley's not a large Colubrid show, it's another large gathering of, reptile folks. So September seemed to be perfectly situated between those two. But that month specifically, you have the majority of Colubrids have already hatched. So we've got the bulk of what we would have to be able to bring to a Colubrid Fest, right? So that month just seems perfect for this. Now the question of what is it going to look like?
Yeah, what is Colubrid Fest?
Right. So because I listened.
Because I had one thing in my head, and then Clint said what Colubrid Fest was, and I was like, that's not what the Carpet Fest is.
Yeah.
I thought that we were doing the Carpet Fest with the Colubrid Fest.
So what? And I heard the podcast that you were on. Was it Colubrid Corruption?
Yeah,
and that you were just on.
Thank you for having me on, Joe.
Yeah, did a good job. Good job.
Uh-huh.
Joe does some good stuff out there.
He does.
And I listened to when you were talking about this, and I'm in my car just cracking up because, Zach says that when he messaged, he goes, I thought we were doing, like Carpet Fest, doing a barbecue. And my reply was, nope, not us. We're doing something different here. And
okay,
it's so funny. So here's the vision. And, I think that I'm pretty confident that it's going to play out, like this. We are looking at this being a weekend event. It will be at a convention center. The Friday evening, there will be a mixer where everyone you come in, you hang out, you get to meet people that I'm sure you've talked to online for years, maybe not met face to face, talk Colubrids. I mean, it's just having fun with like-minded people, right? On that Saturday, the plan is no sales. So when we say show, the show's not happening yet, okay? What Saturday is, you have talks, we have workshops, we have lectures, we have panel discussions. I mean, think about how fun that would be to see, whether it's 3 people, 4 people, 5 people that you like, respect, and know on a topic, get questions tossed to them and get to discuss it right there in person. Questions coming from the audience. I mean, I just think it's going to be great. And the education piece that comes with that, because that's what we want to make sure we get to deliver. Saturday night, there will be an auction. And we love and support USARK.
That we do.
But the auction's not going to USARK. And we say that because we donate a lot of money to USARK throughout the year already. What this is going to go to, and we're pretty sure we know exactly which one it's going to go to at this point, but I think we're going to hold off saying that until we've locked it. Yeah, that'll come later. But I will tell you, all auction proceeds, everything raised there, are going to be donated to a North American Colubrid conservation effort specifically. And it will be named, and you will know exactly where it's going prior to. So
nice.
So we're super pumped, about that. And then Sunday is the show. And the reason that we are tying a show into the weekend along with all of the education is because, let's face it, if people are coming from all over the country for something like this, you probably want to be able to go home with something new. We want to see snakes. We want to be able to interact with them. And, you know, there's a lot of us who, hey, we want to be able to bring snakes. We want to be able to do that kind of thing. So the show would be Sunday. It will be colubrid only. Anything that's not a colubrid that would be allowed would be things like habitats, caging, supplies, shipping, feeders. If there's a lizard in the building, it's a feeder. Kind of thing. So it's as far as, animals for sale, it's just colubrids. But it's something I think that is going to be so neat, so cool. And I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'll probably say more as time goes, but I'm going to say this piece, and I'm going to probably repeat it a lot from now until then. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm willing to bet that at some point you've complained about reptile shows no longer being reptile shows and only being ball python shows. Again, not a knock at ball pythons, but when we just start getting frustrated and only seeing the same 2 or 3 species on just about every table, it's extremely frustrating. This is all of our opportunity to put our money where our mouth is. So show up. Come make this thing successful. And let's put that message out there to all the show promoters that we want variety. We want more. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm stoked. And I promise as soon as we can give more information, we will. The things that we're keeping close to the chest right now, there are reasons for.
There are.
Because we want to scream them to you. Believe me. We do. We're so excited. So go ahead, Zach.
And I'm really
anything?
No, but we're at that Saturday day. We're open to suggestions. If you're a listener, that we are always open to your suggestions. So please message either the Facebook page, the Instagram page, message Clint or I directly on what you think you'd want to hear, want to talk about. And just to reiterate, we're not going to tell you the city, but we took into consideration with the cities that were put forth and voted on cost. So like there are some cities that if we had this in that city, the hotel and everything else would be like astronomically huge. Our target city it's not that. No. It's totally the kind of deal where you get with your buddies, you share a hotel room. It's not going to break the bank. And then those of you who are, you can also fly into this city. We checked flights to this particular place and they are, now granted, a flight is a flight. So I don't want to give the impression that it's like $20. Right. But at the same time, for most people in the U.S. to get to our target city, how about that? It's not expensive in the grand scheme of flying. How about that? Mm-hmm. So we have definitely thought about the cost it would, the cost that would be accrued. And but we're stoked to hell and back on this one. So that's all I got to say about that. At this point in time, because if I say anything else, I'm going to let one of those damn details out we're trying to keep quiet. And I am kind of notorious for doing that when I get jazzed because I stop using the noggin.
Can I walk to it is all I'm going to ask. Could I?
Where you are, maybe.
In Philadelphia, yeah, could I walk to it?
Several days, yes.
I think I'm about to say technically anybody could.
Anybody can, yeah. But how much time you got? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
Leave now.
I'll show up with my backpack full of mud hogs. Okay. Yeah.
I think for tonight, just because we're already at 23 minutes, I'm going to save the science update for next time because I want to just jump into this. But I also want to honor the fact that we're making this thing a reality, and this is the first official statement. So that should be what the pre-show is all about, I think.
Well, and how cool is it we get to formally announce this on the 50th episode?
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Perfect. I mean, it's great. It's great.
Yes. All right. So with that being said, as stated previously, our guest tonight, the one and only Owen Mcintyre of Rogue Reptiles.
There may be another one out there, but yeah.
Yeah. Owen keeps an assortment of snakes. And I don't know what the ratio is of colubrids to pythons. I think you have a lot of carpet pythons that might overwhelm the colubrids, but you also know you have like a lot of rhinos and there's other things in there.
Yeah.
We'll we'll play nice tonight and say that you
Okay.
like snakes.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Cool. So the other thing that we all need to say is, like, I think I said this already. Owen is our first repeat offender for the pod. So we're not going to get into Owen's backstory or anything like that. But I do have a question for Owen, because we asked you the last time, what did your collection look like? And that was, I think, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So today, as far as colubrids are concerned, what's the collection looking like?
I came prepared with
Holy
a list.
crap.
Yeah.
It does have a list.
So currently I have 35 different species of reptile in the house.
Nice.
And out of that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 species of colubrid. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So technically you do have
almost
more
like I
python.
told you, I get a new colubrid species, new python species. Like I have to, they must be, and then the boas are just kind of, but there's 3 of them, but I have to, they have to be close, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So of the colubrids, anything that you can think of in the past year and a half that was new, or have you just built up the groups that you already had?
So the pulchra bamboo rats are new.
Mm-hmm. How you like those?
They're psychotic little orange devils.
Are
I love
they?
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they're mean little bastards.
Yes,
I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's just like wrapped around me. Just I'm like, all right, I'll wait. There you go. Yeah, I mean, they're I love them, and they were one of those things that I have a couple of people around here that I wholesale some stuff to, and it was one of those guys, they owed me money, and they do this thing where they know I'm coming to collect money, so they put stuff out that they think I'm going to like, and rather than paying me, I just take snakes, and I keep falling for it. And the pulchras were definitely, they were there, and I'm just like, yes, and I've enjoyed the hell out of them, and they're easy as hell because I just have them in the side room with my other colubrids on no heat in bins, top of a shelf, and it's just like, oh yeah, here you guys are. Yeah, so I love them. They're great. Yeah. I did add some. I had a pair of Barron's racers that I lost the female, and the male was an import, and he did well, and then he didn't do well, and he did well, and he didn't do well, and then Dan Sheehan hatched out some Barons. And I believe I physically shook him until he gave me some. So I have a pair of baby Barons racers now that I fed fuzzies to last week. And I thought for sure I've killed them because there was just this massive food item. And I'm like, please don't puke. Please don't puke. And then they didn't. And they were looking for food the next day. And I'm like, you guys are awesome. You and I are going to have fun. Like, okay. More excellent. So that's pretty much it. I haven't really expanded too much into the colubrid stuff, and oh my god, this list is out of order. I mean, I added some of the things on it. Oh crap. So yeah.
Well, and then I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that I don't know when that was. Well, I know when it was 2020 that I sent you the pair of false water cobras.
Yes.
And you produced water cobras from that pair. So
I did.
So what are your thoughts on producing falsies?
It's one of those, like, I kept not knowing what I was doing, but I kept like going, well, let's see what happens here. And then it kept going. And I'm like, eventually something will stop me. And then there were babies. I'm like, any minute now, something's going to stop me here. So it was nerve-wracking. Only nerve-wracking because I kind of slowed down their food intake. So of course what you said is when you don't feed a falsie, it tends to get a little punchy with you. But putting them together, I was like, please don't hurt each other. They totally had they were totally fine with each other. He was all over her in 5 seconds flat. And I'm like, all right. And then I kind of left them. They kind of did their thing and kind of went on their way. And I figured that was our first shot. Like the whole point was I was going to have an introduction to kind of have feelers for, because next year was going to be the big trial. And I kind of just let it go. Both of them went back to their normal eating. He stopped destroying his cage and she started just kind of chilling. And then I hadn't seen her because normally she's front and center every like morning checks and PM checks. She's front and center. She's not really hunting or looking for food. Sometimes she will be, but she's at least, I see her, she sees me kind of thing. And I hadn't seen her for like a day. And I'm like, what the hell's up with that? So I checked her hide box and she had like 16 eggs in there with her. And I'm like, that's the problem. So, yeah. And then, the same thing. I'm like, they looked kind of yellowish, they looked kind of off. And I'm like, they're duds. They're all duds. And then they kept going. And I'm like, nothing alive is going to come out of these things. And I mean, they just, and I don't know what, and I guess I should have talked to you beforehand. I was not prepared for the level of just explosion out of egg that baby false water cobra do, because it was like it burst out of the egg and there was fluid everywhere, which like wet the moss and the perlite that they were on to like mush. And then it wasn't happy with that. It had to throw its brothers and sisters around in their eggs while it did that. And that happened every time one of them came out, to the point where I started putting them into separate containers while they were still in their eggs. Because I'm like, stop rolling your sibling. Like, it was, But then it went to the whole, like, all right, now we have to get down to trying to get them feeding. And they all just ripped at food. Like, they went at it like it was, they're all eating fantastic. They all started eating fantastic. I had no problems. And I'm giving the parents the year off just because I'm like, I still have so many and I don't want to overdo it. But they've been popular. People have been buying them. The colors on them are so weird because people are like, are you sure it's not a hypo? I'm like, it's a high yellow. It looks nice. It's pretty. I'm not saying it's shit. Like, it's a pretty falsy. Yeah. And that's it. So,
I said this on Joe's podcast when I was on last week, that I am of the opinion that false water cobras may be among the easiest snakes on earth to breed. And so would you agree, disagree with that experience, given you didn't know you did anything and you ended up with 16 babies?
Exactly. I've had way harder other species. So like I've been banging my head on the white lip problem for 10 years. And I finally got a clutch in 22 out of the golds, nothing from the blacks. My first practice with the falsies got me eggs. So I don't, so I would say, they definitely do want to. If you feed them, they will breed, and I mean, they will eat. I fed the female I got from you an iguana, and she ate it.
Really?
So I'm like, let's see if you. Yep, there it goes. So I mean, she'll eat. Yep.
Can we back up 1 second?
Yep.
Where the hell did you get an iguana?
When you have a friend, when your roommate in college is one of the guys who does the cold-blooded cafe packing. Mr. Foley, you may know him. He tends to send me stuff in my box just to kind of get a reaction out of me. And one of them was an iguana that had passed or something like that. So amongst all my frozen rodents was an iguana. And I'm like, why'd you do this? He goes, I don't know. I was bored. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with it? He's like, feed it to something. And I'm like, all right, fine. And it's gone. So happens.
That works.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mark it down as enrichment. She ate a funny thing. Yeah.
Done.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Before we get too far into everything that you've got now and deep diving, I do this like every episode. I like to go back to the beginning. I always love hearing like my favorite movies are the origin movies. You know what I mean? The origin stories. So that's what I want to know. How did you get into reptiles? Is it just you? Did somebody help along the way? What's your story, Owen?
Mine was like, I actually had a fear of reptiles in elementary school and college. Like, so elementary school, high school, snakes were kind of the weird thing. Towards the end of high school, the worm kind of turned to like, why am I afraid, to kind of an interest. And then first semester of college at Del Val, my roommate was Chris Foley, and he had snakes. He had leucistic black rats. He had all that other stuff. And I remember because there would be the Hamburg reptile show near us. So it's kind of like a rite of passage at Del Val. At one point you go to Hamburg and everything turns and you maybe come back with an alligator. But we went a couple times, and I know he would bring some stuff in, and that kind of started getting me interested. And then I got a Cali King as my first snake. I had a smooth scale green snake as my first snake, but I killed that thing in like 30 days. Like that thing was not long for this world, but I had a Cali, and then that started the interest. And then the college gave me an opportunity to make my own special project and get graded for it. So I'm like, I'll just breed Cali Kings in your lab. And they're like, okay. I'm like, done. So I bred Cali Kings in their lab, and they gave me an A. And then that kind of, the interest towards Python started after that. And then my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she got me my first carpet python when I turned 18.
And that was your first python period?
First python period was Morelia. Okay. I fear what would have happened if she ever got me, like if she had got me a boa constrictor or a blood python. Many things would have been different. So,
what kind of carpet was it?
Just a normal coastal.
Coastal.
Again,
gotcha.
like she got me a coastal. She didn't get me an IJ or a diamond. It was coastal. Yeah. And that's, we've run with that ball since, but it was that. And then, college and after college and stuff like that. But then things started picking up when I met Eric. We started doing MPR with like more carpets and veering off into other species. I think he gave me my first Liasis, which was a Macklot's python. And then that rolled into that, and then Timor pythons, white lips. I think I got a retic floating around downstairs somewhere. So it's like that kind of started. But like I said with Zach, it's like colubrids and pythons have always been like the two. There's always one seemed to be a little bit more than others. Some stuff has kind of fallen by the wayside, and then I am like, I missed those, and I grab them again and just restock. But that's just kind of how it's always kind of rolled.
It's funny that you just said that I miss those, and you kind of go back to it. And it's because I just had a conversation yesterday about you, Zach, on that topic. So Zach had a couple of his, are they grad students? Is that
no? Those were actually my faculty and staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Partners in crime.
And they're phenomenal. I thought very highly of them. So they just came to the shop, and we were working on some things together. And during the conversation, they would say I remember how it got brought up, but we were talking about whether it was king snakes they were asking me what my favorite species were, and I'm like, what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I like this one for this reason. I like, and it changes, honestly.
Yeah.
And they were like, Zach's like that a lot too, where it's, he's liked this for a few years and then he goes that. And I'm like, I think that's not a Zach thing. I think that's like, if you like colubrids or if you like pythons would be another good one to tie into this, then I think you go through cycles because there's such a variety out there that it's hard. Like you got some that are always going to be near and dear to you, and, interest, but I don't want to say you get bored with them. You just start to become more interested in something else because it's a different way of keeping. Yeah. It's a different personality. It's, a different trait. And so I think that for those of us that are into these groups, that we probably, I bet it's a common theme that exact thing happens.
And also sometimes you try a species and you get kicked in the teeth and then you're like, screw this species. And then you like ditch it. And then stuff changes. Your situation changes, opportunities present themselves. And you're like, you know what? Like round 2, let's go again. Let's see what happens. And sometimes you get kicked in the teeth again. And then you're like, this species is just not for me. But then other times it gets better. Like this will be my second chance with Savus because I had Savus and it ended horribly. So now we're re-upping and now we're going to try again and we'll see what goes on. Diamond pythons are something they've been in my head. I had a pair years ago and it did, I lost them for whatever reason. And it's like, I want to do it again because I think I'm better. I've learned more. My opportunity's better. And it's like, screw that. I'm going to try these again. Like, we're going to figure this out. So,
what I'm telling you, it's like you were standing there for this conversation because we went right into that. And I said, I go, if I had to answer what my favorite at the moment, what has my biggest interest at the moment, it's actually gray banded king snakes.
Yeah.
And, and I said, and the reason is exactly what you just said, because I had terrible luck with them 20 years ago, but I wasn't keeping them right, but didn't realize it.
Exactly.
And now I got a huge influx, you know, when getting this collection where I've got not just one or two animals to try to learn. I have 30 plus, 40 plus. And so you actually get to learn the nuance of them when you have that big, you know, of a collection to work with. And breeding them was not a problem. But then my big headache this year was getting babies to eat, obviously.
Yeah.
But during the second half, we really started to figure that out and crack a lot of that code. We had, you know, a good amount of luck the second half of we'll call feeding season. And now I'm just super stoked that we're in another season where I'm like, now how good are we going to be with babies because of what we learned last year? So I think you are spot on, man, where when we grow, we get better, we get access to better information. And, you know, we give it that second shot, you know, we go back around and I haven't decided this yet. I just got 2.3 Volante in.
I know where this is going.
Right. And if you are an avid listener of this show, you know, I have literally said on multiple occasions, I am where Volante come to die. And I can't decide if I'm going to take another roll of the dice and see if I can make this work, or if I'm like, somebody buy these damn things before I kill them. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, man, that's spot on. Owen, I agree wholeheartedly, buddy.
Cool. So this is a perfect segue with this topic, because the one of the snake species in recent memory for me that I had try one, got kicked in the mouth, said I'm never working with those things again. That lasted, I think, 48 hours. And then I was like, nope, my approach was wrong. We're doing this again because I won't give up. And that would be Leoheterodon, which are the Madagascar, you know, hognose snakes. And so that is our focus tonight. And before we get into these snakes, I guess we are going to do Science Corner, just we're going to do it in a different order, because I want to get this out into the ether right now, because I have people reach out to me. They find out I'm writing a book on hognose snakes, and then they'll say, are you going to include the Mad Hogs in it? Are the Madagascar hognose snakes going to be in it? And I understand where that's coming from, because there's an idea in herpetoculture that, you know, these are just another form of hognose snakes. And technically with common names, you can go down that path and be like, it's true. But if you're looking at the genus Leoheterodon and where it fits in the grand scheme of snakes, they're not even remotely closely related to North American hognose snakes. They're Samophids from Africa. They are more closely related to a black mamba than they are a hognose snake. And that is true because that group is sister to the elapids. Yeah. So please understand, hognose in appearance, not in relationship. And they are related to, there's a clade of these Samophids that live in Madagascar. There's a Madagascar clade. So Madagascar cat-eyed snakes, some of the other Colubrid, I can't say the genus, Lingaya, the leaf-nosed snakes. I believe all of those, I could be a little bit wrong here, but I think I'm right. All of those form a clade. But that clade, you know, is part of the Samophidae, which is more closely related to the Elapidae than it is to the Colubridae. And then hognose snakes aren't even Colubrids anymore. They're Dipsadidae. So, like, we are very far from each other evolutionarily, and my inner biology nerd is now happy that has now been recorded for people to hear. So,
they're going to be in the book.
Well, yeah, thanks. So, yeah. There is going to be a chapter or some kind of discussion about what is a hognose snake, and we will definitely hit on them there. But
Good, because otherwise I'm holding on to these pictures for nothing.
Yes,
like I have all these pictures, and I'm like, what if he's taking them out of the book now? I'm gonna be so pissed. Yeah, but no,
they will be in the beginning of the book or at the end of the book. But yeah, so that that's something I wanted the world to know. But currently, there are 3 species of Madagascar hognose snakes. They're on the genus Leoheterodon. The one that's probably the most common, the one that most people have access to. Definitely the one that is most readily available as a captive-born individual would be the giant Madagascar hognose snake, which is Leoheterodon madagascariensis. And then we have 2 other species, and giant is a good name because the other 2 species are about 25 to 20% smaller, maybe even a third smaller. Yeah. And that would be the blondes, which are just a yellow, really cool-looking snake, Leoheterodon modestus. And then we have the speckled hogs, which is Leoheterodon gayi. So Owen has kept them all. Yes. So with that introduction, before we get into like care and all that kind of jazz, I just want you to talk about your experience with them. Is there one that you're like, I love these things? Is there one you're like, die in a fire? Is there another one that you're like, the verdict's still out? Like, just kind of talk about that.
All right.
The love is the giant. Die in the fire is the blonde, and the one I'm still on the fence about is the speckled. So there you go. Right. End of show. But I would say that out of all of them, the giants are definitely the ones that, and it's weird because like you say giant, and it's the size of like maybe a pine snake or a bull snake max, and they're probably the easiest one to work around. They're the ones that they understand what I'm coming in there for. They're the easiest to feed because I do that big drop feed that I do for everybody. They're also like, they'll maybe run, but they won't. The adults don't flare up anymore. They don't really kind of puff. They don't really do anything. They just want to beeline. And once I kind of get them up off the hook, they're like, all right, whatever, and kind of go. They're also the easiest with like breeding because it's, you have the male, you have him set up with his girls, and then eggs appear in April, and they'll all lay them on top of each other. So you just go in and grab them. The blondes are the ones that, they're definitely quicker to bite. They're definitely quicker to maybe have a little bit of an issue with each other. When I did pair my trio, I turned out I had 2 males, and they did carve each other up something awful, which was nice of them to do for me. So it happens quickly. Also, I'll say as far as babies going, the giants get them rolling is a headache in its own right, but the blondes were times 12. So, and then, the speckles, I think I just had a bad pair that were wild caughts that just were not having it, and it was an uphill struggle. So I would like to redo them and kind of start from scratch with those. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're just going to do the classic.
Yep.
Tell us how you keep them. We'll ask you the prompts, and then we'll go from there, cool. Which is another thing that I don't want to say that we stole from MPR. We respect from MPR, therefore we do it. How about that?
Okay, understandable.
Okay, all right. Yep. So, and this is going to be for whichever species you want to talk about, but we're going to kind of focus mainly on the giants, just because those are the ones most people have. So, in enclosure size, what do you keep them in? What did you keep them in? Does the new strategy work better? Is it the same old strategy? Just kind of go over the whole. You know how this works.
Yeah, we can start from. So I got my original pair as captive hatched babies at Tinley Park, and I started them off in 5-quart bin with mulch and a hunk of cork bark and a water bowl, and they quickly grew out of those into 32 quarts, and they were in a 32-quart bin separate for a while. And then after that, I moved the pair into a 4x2x2 cage together. And inside that cage was kind of just the 2 of them. That's when I got my first clutch. The year after I got my first clutch, Riley sent me his 3 adults and his 1 juvenile. So all of a sudden now I had trios. So they moved up in cage size from 4x2s to there's this weird, it's a boa, it's an animal plastics cage, and it's a weird size because it's deeper than it should be. So it's like 4 foot, 2 foot, and then it's like deep, maybe 2.5, maybe something like that. So it is deeper, and it does give a little bit more height. So that's where the trios are now. And they have their bin, they have their cork bark flats and their cork bark tubes that everybody likes to go in. They have big enough water bowl that they can get into if they want to. Kind of happens every once in a while. And then I'm going to install some rock shelves so they can maybe get a little bit of height, because I have seen them kind of climbing around a little bit. So we're kind of going to move on to that. But that's the cages that they're in. They have a hot spot of maybe 80, 82 during the day. And then nighttime is whatever the hell the room is doing. So it's just kind of, if it's a little bit cooler, it's a little bit cooler. I do separate the trios for feeding. I will bust everybody out and put them into, I have an empty 32 quart nearby. So I'll bust everybody out, put them in, one will stay in the cage, and then 2 others will go into the bins. And then they get a bowl of food every 10 days. And that bowl of food's got like chicken, rat, fish, eggs. It's just like filled to the brim, and they just eat it all and then go lay down. So, but that's the Giants. So
I think we need to call that bowl of food, by the way, the McIntyre stew.
Yeah, it should be. Goddamn it. Yeah. I'm like, I want some of that. I mean, it is. I think last week we had hunks of, I found this stuff. This is them and the Falsies make Walmart now a way more fun experience for me, because I'll just go in there and be like, I bet you they'll eat this. And I found these things called catfish nuggets at Walmart.
Yeah,
that were cheap
I know
as hell.
exactly what you're talking
and I'm
about.
like, yeah, it's a nugget of catfish. And there it goes. And so so they got chicken, they got rodents, they got catfish, they got frog legs, and some quail eggs that I had. So.
Nice. What's your lighting situation?
Lighting for them is they have some I don't have internal lights in the cages because they were just running too hot. It was cooking everything, and I didn't like it. So I'm still kind of on the fence about that. But then I have timed lights in the room that will turn on, and that's just basic, I don't even know what to call them, like fluorescent tube light, or I think they're LEDs now at this point, but I have those, and they're on a 12 and 12 and that's for everybody in the room. So but it's funny because when you're in the room working, one will track you, it'll do a little pop up, it'll just kind of do this, and then when you turn back around, this one's still here, but now this one's creeping up. And then eventually you'd learn around, all 3 of them are just watching you do your thing. And then they'll slowly start going back down when you're not paying attention to them. So
if you look at iNaturalist for them, there's a lot of pictures of them periscoping like that. They are very active diurnal snakes.
They are.
And right now, I want to say this before I forget to do it. Dave Kaufman did a video on Madagascar giant hognose snakes. Are we keeping them right? Mm-hmm. I'll let you all be the verdict of the content of the video, but what I want you all to do is just watch the video, because they were in a national park in Madagascar, and these things were just everywhere they turned around. There was another one slithering around, and they reminded me of what I've seen black racers do, where they're kind of out and, they're alert and they're sticking their head in nooks and crannies, and you could tell that they were actively foraging. And the 2 that I have, they're in all 3 of mine came from different people, but I've raised 2 of them up. Yours is still in a rack tub getting bigger. And for the record, the one that I got from Owen is the most psychotic of the 3.
Excellent. Good. As it should be. Yeah.
I'm being paid back a little bit for the false water cobras. I guess the other 2 are fine. And this little bastard, there's 3 snakes that my son tweaks about cleaning the tub on. And he it's fun to play this game with Colin. Move the Mad Hog. And so then he'll like slowly open the Mad Hog tub. And when he realizes there's a corn snake in there and somewhere down below is the Mad Hog, you can hear him like, oh God. So anyway, kind of fun. But anyway, they all do that periscoping thing. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. And they also do that. They do that broad like shield hood where and it's so hard. It's so freaking hard. Like people are like, can I get pictures? I'm like, like it's just gonna be the back of its head as it shows me like its shield and gets all pissed off and then runs from me. So it's like I'm like creeping open the bin and like shoving my phone in there and quick taking a picture. Babies in like the light tent take me hours, like hours to try to get to do something. That. Yeah,
I feel your pain.
I
know that.
I'm trying to figure out new ways. I took pictures of some some rhinos in their deli cups and just in the light tent so you couldn't see it.
You have to cup them.
I have a big bucket now that has a ring LED on the lid. And it has a little trap door, and that's how I got pictures of my falsies. Is I shoved them in a bucket, closed it, and quickly opened a little hatch and took a picture.
Yep.
So
I just put them under a deli that's tight, but like a blue deli, so it's not clear. And I'll just put them under it. I'll put a weight on it, and I'll fool around doing something else for 5 minutes. I have the camera ready, lift the deli, and I've got about 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Yeah.
Get that shot while they're like they want to figure out whether or not they're there. You know, and then get that shot and move on.
Right.
Zach, I wanted to ask you on yours, and this is because of with what you found in the field with the Western or the Plains hogs. Do you have any UV on your giants?
I had UV on them, and I think I was a little bit afraid of actually overdoing it with the UV. Like it was pushing the 4.5 instead of where I like it to be, which is the 2.3 when I have my UV meter. So I turned that off. I used to keep my stacks at home, which is where these guys are. I have animal plastics enclosures I bought eons ago. And where I keep them, it's the 4x2 by 15 inch tall. So they're kind of short. And the top, I have 2 stacks of those, and the 2 top enclosures I had cutouts for lamps. So the top guys get actual basking lamps and everything. And that is where I kept the first batch of Mad Hogs. And they were the wild caughts that I got 2-3 years ago. There was like a mass import from Madagascar. And they went from, you couldn't find a Mad Hog anywhere. And then I went to that Pittsburgh show I talk about, and I think they were at like 5 people's tables. So, and those wild caught animals, they definitely would bask. Like I had a heat lamp and then just a light for, radiation. And every morning you would hear them kind of go over, coil up underneath, bask for like a solid hour. And I tempt them, and they were actually operating at a very hot temperature. I am not telling you to cook your Madagascar hognose snake. I'm simply saying like they were basking,
an equatorial
and
snake. Yeah.
And they were getting up to like 90, 92, 93. But I don't think they would. I think UVB would be good for them because they are so diurnal.
That's why I asked. And it's there. Forgive me for a second, gentlemen. I'm going to have to go on a rant. Okay. So I asked that because ever since you talked about, all the hogs you found on the crawl, only coming out when the sun was out, and all of them, what was it, 6% you were hitting? I think
it was
you said
like 4 to 6. Yep.
Yeah. And that just really, really interests me. And it's because as we keep saying on the show, where do a number of these species, do they need UV? No, obviously, there's a lot of them that we've had success with for years, but do they benefit from it? We tend to believe just about everything does to some degree, as long as you have the right amount, right? And so I just get curious with some of these species, especially the ones that are, most active during, hot times of the day and sunny times of the day. If if how you guys are keeping them, if you've tried it, if you've noticed anything. And the rant I need to go on real quick. It stems from a post made on. It stems from a whole lot more than that, but the most recent piece was had a post of a picture that I took in here in the shop, and there's one of our regulars, great guy. He came in with a ball python that he purchased from us. He's got it on his shoulders, and he's just cruising around and looking at everything in the shop like he does several times a week. And at one point, he's looking at the UV bulbs, and his ball python is periscoping straight out in front of him, looking at the bulbs with him, right? Mm-hmm. That thing has gone wild. It has had, I think we're somewhere around 5,400 reactions to it. I mean, it's been shared almost 400 times. People, loved it. But one of the comments, I say a few of the comments were ball pythons don't need UV. And none of those UV or bulbs are appropriate for a ball python. And you can insert any other animal species in that same thing. Ball python just happens to be the one, in this category. And so I just want to say two things about UV. One, if you are not studying, and I don't mean keeping animals, but studying a certain species of animal where you're drawing blood, you are running analysis, you are checking all of these things that would be scientifically checked if someone was actually studying it. Do not say the animal does not benefit from it. You do not know. Don't tell me, well, I keep 200 snakes. I've got a mouthful of teeth. I'm not a dentist. Okay. So that just is driving me nuts. The number two thing, and this comes from individuals, if you are providing UV for an animal that needs it or typically doesn't, whatever we want to say here, when we talk about the coil bulbs, you guys know the difference, linear and, linear fluorescent and the coil. So are the linear UV bulbs better than the coil? Yes, that has been proven. You can study that. You can read that. However, if you're going to say something along the lines of these coil bulbs are junk for an animal, I'm going to tell you you're being ridiculous, because if someone has an animal and that animal needs UV, for you to go online and pound them because they're using this type of bulb and not the Cadillac, you would rather them go without UV because they don't have the money for the brand new fixture that it's going to take for that type of bulb. I mean, are you driving nothing but Lexuses and Bentleys? To me, the audacity where rather than saying, hey, yeah, that will absolutely, get what you need. This is the better choice. If you're able to move to this at some point, this is the way you want to go. But I mean, give new people a break,
Yeah, let them breathe. The thing about the coils is that you're able to isolate the UVB a little more than with a long tube. And we always talk about gradients. The coils, if you, this is what I teach the students in herpetoculture. If you put a pothos or you put some log or you put something that's going to kind of break up that beam of light, you now are giving that snake, lizard, frog, whatever, the ability to have choice and control, and it can go to whatever level of UVB it needs. Now, if you have the coil, you don't have any kind of cage decoration in there, and it's just blasting away, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But, adding some, we call it heterogeneity to the enclosure is going to, break that stuff up. And I do think that the Madagascar hogs would benefit from it if it's given to them. But, that's a hypothesis. That's not a defined, that is literally I think, I don't know because I didn't do what you said.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And it's one of the things being said is, because he wasn't even shopping for UV for a ball python at that point. He was just, he's got other reptiles. He was just shopping. That just happened to be what was on him. But I think one of the comments was, ball pythons are nocturnal and, was it crepuscular? If I'm saying that right?
Crepuscular, and they live in termite mounds. And that is the only place that they live in Africa because they never leave the termite mound.
Never.
Which is also shaped like a rack tub.
That's right. Well, my argument is you literally just said, in that statement there, crepuscular.
Yeah.
That's dawn and dusk.
Yes. Yeah.
Guess what? there's not much, but there's UV right there. That's when they're out moving. You know what I mean? They are getting some. So it's all about the right percentage. So I don't know. I just, with this topic, man, it just kind of lit that in me. So I just wanted
let's go from one controversial topic to another, because I love this about Madagascar hogs.
Yep.
Cohabbing them.
Yes.
And I want to talk about the cohabbing, because I believe, if I'm not overstating, I've done a bit of research on these guys, and it seems like 10 years ago you kept them all as individuals. Now it seems like that is absolutely the norm, is to keep them together in trios. I can think of at least 4 or 5 people that are good, producing these snakes. That's the method, is you don't do the classic thing. It's just they live together. You cycle them kinda with whatever the room's going on, and you get babies. Is that fair?
I would say 90% of the questions I get about the Mad Hogs is, do you really cohab, or how do you go about cohabbing? And Riley Jimison wrote a nice article about cohabbing and stuff when he did his. And of course, I have all his animals, and he produced the one clutch the one time, and I think he ended up getting one survivor. And I produced from both females. He gave me his adults, and I got the one that he got to the one he produced, which was a female. I got her to lay last year. So, the cohabbing really seems to do well. You have the boy, he has his girls. Like, I'm not saying put multiple males in the cage and stuff like that, because I imagine that would just be bad. And I kind of also, you do have that thing where, because I separate for feeding, when you reintroduce everybody, he has that short-term memory where he's like, and who's this lovely lady coming into my territory? I've never seen her before. I'm like, you were laying on top of her when I came to get her, but whatever. So, but yeah, they cohab year round. And what happens is that most of the time, I have the those black bins you can get at Walmart with the yellow lids.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hide boxes I like to use for these guys. That's what I use for carpets, everything. The bin just gets bigger depending on how big you are. They have like that 5-gallon one. And I like it because you can pack that thing full of dirt and moss, and then they'll kick out what they want and keep in what they want and all that other stuff. So what'll happen is, during the year, usually the females are inside the bin, or the females are off together on one side of the cage, and the male is usually just on the opposite end. Wherever the girls are going, he's just kind of giving them a wide berth. He'll maybe hang out with them, but most of the time he's just kind of off doing his own thing. And then all of a sudden, everything changes, and the 3 of them are stuck together like glue. And they're all in the box, or they're all over here, or the females are in the box and the male has wound himself around the box, like nose to tail kind of a thing. Or he's crumpled up in the front of the opening and stuff like that. And then it's just, all of a sudden he's on the other side of the cage again. And it's like, okay. And then the females will lay the eggs on top of each other inside the bin right there, because they think it's a great spot to put the eggs. So they'll do that. I know black rat snakes will do the same thing. If they find a really nice spot, they'll all put their eggs here. So that's what they'll do. I would not recommend cohabbing immediately. Like, some people are like, I'll buy 3 babies and put them together. No. Like, please God, give them time. Like, let them grow up. But my youngest female, she was, I think, 2.5 when I added her to one of the other trios. And I was like keeping an eye out, because I thought like maybe it would be a little bad, because she was a little bit smaller than the other 2. But nah, they just kind of like, okay, this belongs in here now, and enveloped her into the thing. And then she was in there for maybe another year and a half before she bred. So,
wow, cool.
Yeah,
this is becoming like a reoccurring theme, on the show. Hearing how many top-notch breeders having great success with cohabbing various species. And another great topic you just walked us down here, Zach. So let's take a second, and I guess I want to say where I think some of this has come from, because we see trends, we see cycles, that come through the industry, come through the hobby a lot. And let's think back to when the reptile hobby was first becoming any kind of thing. Back then, it was the Wild West. We didn't have care sheets. We sure as hell didn't have books and, things that really were dedicated to species. And people would keep all kinds of things in one cage. We're talking multiple species.
Yeah.
That's how I learned black rat snakes will eat skinks. Didn't know that until I thought, I was going to put all these together. And then I didn't have any skinks. Mm-hmm. So, but that's what we did, right? That's what, we didn't know any better. And so we had where tons of things would be put in a cage. And as we grew, as we matured as a hobby and as, this segment here, we started to learn we can't do that. Things need their space, right? They need to get their own thing. So then we moved to, okay, every animal has its own cage, its own tub, its own whatever. So we went that direction. That needed to happen compared to what we were before. Mm-hmm. Now I think what we're doing is we still have some of that old mentality of, no, everything has to be, separated on its own. But what we're finding is, no, there are so many of these species that not only can, but seem to do very well and in fact produce even better when they are cohabitated. And in many cases, these animals are getting more roaming space, larger cages than they would if they were singled and kept kept individually. I guess my point is I would much rather have, a 3,000 square foot house that I had to share with 4 other people than to be in a 10 by 10 room all by myself, all the time kind of thing. So they get more freedom, they get more movement. And I think it's more natural. So I think that's kind of, I guess when we're talking about cohabbing and we're talking about it being controversial, I think that's where it is. I think that's where the controversy comes from, is because there's an older way of thinking that was the right way of thinking compared to the even older way of thinking before. But as we preach all the time on here, we have to continue to evolve and accept that there are better ways of doing things. And I think that many of these species we're learning can and do remarkably well when cohabbed.
I do a lot of cohabbing when it comes to a lot of different species I have, mainly just because I know I'm the problem sometimes when it comes to introductions and breeding. Mm-hmm. That like, oh, she ovulated. Where's the male? Oh, he's in his cage. Oh, good. Mm-hmm. That's helpful. So all my rhino rat snakes are cohabbed in pairs, soon to be trios when I raise up a few more girls. The only thing I would recommend with this kind of stuff is that separate feeding.
Yes. Yes.
Even if you're not feeding them, just I go in and everybody gets separated. And then, you know what? If it's not their turn to feed this week, they'll be reintroduced when everybody calms the hell down. Mm-hmm. Especially with things like pythons, cribos, stuff like that, where the bite can happen so fast and the damage can happen quickly. My cribo are in cages right now that are going to be vacating soon. And then the falsies are going to go in those cages. They are 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot cages, and they're wood, and they have a PVC pipe through one of the walls with caps on it. So when introduction happens, I take the caps off and I run away. And then the Caribos will figure out where they want to go. Sometimes they're both here. Sometimes they're together. And now for breeding season, they have a 12 by 2 by 2 cage.
That's
to kind of do their thing. Yeah. And I have not gotten a viable clutch out of them since. Everything has been slugged. So probably ditching that project, but the falsies are going to move into those cages soon, which the falsies have 6 by 2 by 2 now, but these are connected. And also, again, removes me from the equation of just undo the caps, run away. I've started to add those kind of pass-throughs for my black phase white lips. I'm trying to figure it out for my olive pythons and stuff like that, where it's just they have the cage, because I like the idea of when breeding season comes around, everybody gets the big cage. So my adult olive python females have 8 foot cages, my males have 6 foot cages, and I'm trying to figure out the bridge so that when breeding season comes, now we have this giant cage for the two of them to traverse. So
it just sounds so cool, Owen.
Yep.
I just love hearing that kind of stuff.
So that's the idea for that stuff. So the Mad Hogs are definitely the first dip into that. Now, that being said, I don't cohab the blondes. So
and it's to the point.
Giants.
And it's exactly what I think we're saying here is no, not every species should be. But there's, it's not saying that no species should be or could be. I mean, and that's where really doing it's trial and error a lot.
Right.
And then sharing, the findings kind of thing, with the group.
And I also think it's like, so I don't cohab my corn snakes because otherwise my female's just going to double clutch herself to death. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, the Mad Hogs are good about it because when she lays the eggs, the male is like, and he just leaves her alone, which is great. If he was all over her trying to double clutch, I'd throw him out of there for a week and a half. And that's the thing is that even then, however long they spend away from each other, putting them back together, there's never any kind of infighting or I'm now going to assert myself. It's just boy, girl, good. Okay, done. I imagine, though, that if I put it in there and he was like, boy, what? And then we'd be off to the races. So as long as
no,
that's not supposed to happen here. But I thought about cohabbing the blondes. I only have one female and I have two males that were all three were wild caughts. So they've all been their own level of, joy. And the one male has just lost parts of his tail as we've gone, and he's now got a nub. But he was the one who I had two boys. I had one perfect male, perfectly pristine wild caught boy, and then I had Nubby here. And when they fought each other, Nubby did the more damage to the other guy, but the other guy is the one who sired the clutch. So I'm like, so I got really nice babies, but Nubby wrecked my nice male, and I'm like, jerk. But I kind of set them up, and I kind of try to use the boys to play off each other. I don't put them together, but I'll throw sheds in the cage with the girl to kind of piss them off. The female spends so much of her time. It's almost like watching the two different species is completely different. Like where giant hogs are out about watching, scanning, doing stuff. Blondes are like in the mulch underneath the cork bark flats.
Interesting.
And you don't see them. You put the mouse on top of the cork bark and you close the cage. And then they'll come out and eat it on their own, and then that's it. I don't know if it's because, but I will say that 3 of my giant hogs are wild caught. So the trio I got from Riley were wild caughts, and then my pair were captive hatched, and he had a captive born and bred. So that's my thing, and they'll all kind of lay out, but it's almost like I feel like if you're the biggest, meanest thing in the world, it doesn't matter what you do. You can lay out and do whatever. Who cares? Blondes are a little bit smaller. Maybe they feel the need to hide a little bit more.
Do you keep the blondes in a different sized cage, or is it basically the same?
Blondes,
I know you're not cohabbing them, but
the blondes are in 41s, 41 quarts with mulch. They have a couple of. They like the cork bark flats because they'll go underneath the mulch and just kind of spin and make a divot, and they'll do that. And then they have a nice sized water bowl. They can get into it if they want to, but it's not like I'm not trying to have a lake in my tub here. I'm kind of playing with the substrate recently because Zach Baez went to Madagascar and he sent me a video of a mad hog just burrowing through this sandy substrate looking for eggs. And I'm like, okay, sand, we'll play with that. We can figure some shit out. So right now I got a lot of I usually use the coconut husk stuff that like brick you can tear. I like that, but then I also like to cut it like with pine bark nuggets from Lowe's because you can get that all in there, and it helps extend the life of the brick a little bit more. It also gives more stuff for them to kind of weave around, dig under, dig through. But now I think I'm going to start adding maybe some sand and stuff too, or maybe their hide boxes are sand with damp moss on top. Like, we can start figuring some stuff out. Usually they're the hide boxes are just sphagnum moss with some mulch and stuff in there too. And I'll usually try to fill it up before right when we get close to egg laying season, I'll like fill it to the brim. And because during egg, they just kick all the shit out. Like they'll just like go through and rip it apart and wreck it and pull shit out so they have a nice divot the way they like it. And then I'll leave it. They'll lay their eggs. I'll pull the eggs. And then throughout the summer, they'll kick more out. They'll poop in it. They'll do whatever. And you slowly get back to it. But yeah.
So then we talked about feeding. We talked about enclosure size. We talked about temperatures to a certain degree. I do want to talk about with your temps in the wintertime. You said you just kind of let whatever's going to happen in the room happen. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you're in Philadelphia, so you're going to get a cycle no matter what.
You're going to get a cycle no matter what. And then I also have so many other species in the room. So for a while, I had one trio of mads in the Python room that they all the heaters were unplugged. They were fine because the room itself got into the high 80s during the day. And then during the wintertime, it was dropped down into the 70s, low 70s, something like that. And that was in the wintertime. In the summertime, I don't even think it got even below in like 75, 76. A lot of the heat panels are used as more of like a safety net to make sure the cage.
That's what I use them for.
Yeah, doesn't go below here. Yeah, that's the whole point. And they just didn't have they have a heat panel in their cage. It's not on. It's just there because they seem to be fine. And then I got the other trio, and they were in a side room, which is where all my California king snakes, corn snakes, the falsies were there for a while, my Vietnamese blue beauties, and it's not as well insulated. It's below ground, but it has a window like right at ground level, and it's unfinished, so it's right on the cinder block. And that room gets colder. That's that room when it's wintertime for the Colubroids, they just unplug the rack that they're in and they'll do whatever. The hogs had the same kind of setup. They had heat panels, but their panels would turn on just because I wanted them to get into a little bit into the 80s during the day. But then at nighttime, it would drop, and I had it at a safety net of about 70, maybe I think 69 or something like that, where it's like, if it gets this low, turn on. So, and I'm not sure how many times that happened. Well, probably a lot because that room got cold. But they also had other things in there with them that I wanted to make sure didn't get too low. But now both trios of Mad Hogs are in that side room. So, gotcha. And I don't know, this will be the trial. We'll see if moving them has totally screwed me, but I got clutches from all four females, even though they were in separate rooms. So, gotcha. Yeah.
So what would you say the temps are getting to over the winter?
I'd say during the day, it's got to be close to like 82, 83, especially in like August in the middle of my snake room. Yeah, 83, 84, unbearably disgusting. Yeah, something like that. Nighttime, I want to say maybe it gets down to like, I think the lowest I would let that get down to is like 67, 68. And then I like doing these things with, I have nothing but herp stats. I have purged all things else from my place. Everything's a herp stat. So you can set up the ramping so that the heat turns on and it goes, and then it reaches its peak, and then it kind of sits at its peak for a while, and then it ramps back down so that you can kind of have that gradual stuff. And what I've seen with a lot of my snakes is stuff turns on, things start ramping, they all come out, they all sit into the panel, it ramps, they get warm, and then they go do other stuff. They like go get a drink, they go do over here, they sit on a stick for a while, they I don't know, go and flip over their water bowl because they're bored. I don't know, they do that stuff. Hogs are exactly the same way. Heat turns on, they come out, they do their thing, or they kind of bask for a little bit. Light comes in through that window, they kind of chill, and then they go off and do their own little thing. It's usually, I got to find one underneath this cork bark too because it really likes that one, but he's over here and that one's over here, so they kind of all move all around.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then in the wintertime, what's the temp dropping down to?
I'd say that's the when it gets down to about the 60 thing. So like maybe it ramps up to about, maybe the daytime high is about 80, 82, because that's the same thing I do with bredli and other spring breeders is you get the warm, but then you drop. So I'd say again that's when it gets down into the 60s is when it's winter time with that. And I wouldn't say that I turn off food for them. Like a Cali King, I'm going to kiss you on the top of the head. I'm going to close you up, and then we'll see you in 4 months. Okay. But with them, I keep feeding. So the amount that is in their bowl will decrease. So where they were getting like 3 chicks, a mouse, a slab of fish, and a frog leg, they're getting like a chick and a mouse and maybe like an egg. And then that's it. And then when the temperatures start coming up, like around, because we usually get eggs in April, so it's early February, I'll start adding more to those bowls, so food increases, and they start eating more, and they just get huge. Like, you know, the females just get massive, and I have one male that is just a big, beefy, chunky boy, and I'm trying like hell to get him to slim down. And I'm like, here's your chicken. Here's your one little chick, and that's all you get for right now. And he's resisting. But
he's resisting.
The females get huge, and like I said, the male will just be all over them. He wants to be in with them. He wants to be around them. The female's moving around the cage. He's right behind her. I caught a video of one of my males trying to breed the female, but he was reversed. So he had his tail on her head and was just like smacking her. And I'm like, you both are proven breeders. So like, I know you know how to do this. Like, but the males get so revved up. It's ridiculous. And then they kind of calm down as they figure it out. And then I get eggs through April to May. So usually beginning of April into May is when eggs start popping up.
So are they breeding in like December, January when it's cold?
They're usually breeding. I usually start seeing locks in like January-ish, like late January. And then into February when I start feeding them is when you start seeing like a ton of locks. But based on where you're getting eggs, it had to be the early January stuff. So right now is when I start seeing, you know, that the male is now leaving the females alone. Like right now, we're in the middle of March. He's over here, they're over there. So we're done. It's already happened. I think he's already done chasing the girls. I'm pretty sure I got 3 females that are going to lay. Judging on the size. Plus, the females will do this thing where they will eat everything in sight. And then one time you go to pull the drawer after you put the bowl in there, and all the food is still in there. And you're like, that you don't do that. Normally you like lick the bowl clean. Like that is, So I'm waiting for that to happen.
Okay. So then when you get eggs on the ground,
yep.
Let's talk about incubation. Mm-hmm. And then I definitely, this is kind of another one of our reoccurring themes, which is getting these things to eat when they're babies. Cause I know that they can be challenging. Jennifer Joseph, who was one of our first shows ever, my mail is from her. Mm-hmm. And she, when I was talking to her about it, I distinctly remember her saying like, I have taken care of a lot of things, but these things wanted to die when they came out of the egg.
Oh God! So I got. I mean, again, like I told you, the giants are one thing. Blondes are that on steroids. So with babies, oh my God. So eggs, I incubate both Leoheterodon clutches the same way, which is half submerged in some damp vermiculite, damp moss on top, in a bin, on a shelf, in my Python room. Like no incubator, they're just, there they go. And you just make sure that the moss stays nice and damp. So every once in a while you're spraying it. If it gets really dry, you pull all the moss, wet it down, wring it out, throw it back over top. And then, like I said, you get eggs in April, May, but then usually get hatchlings in July. So
they got a longer incubation.
It does take a bit. It does take a little bit of longer incubation for the giants. For the blondes, I got eggs in June and hatchlings in August. So
about typical Colubrid.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of around there, about a 60-day-ish mark. Yeah,
same parameters. Giants take longer. I guess because they're bigger. I don't know. Like it's.
What temp are those eggs incubating at? In your room, like 74, whatever the room is,
74, 83.
Yeah, okay.
They're higher on the shelf, so it should be warmer up there. And they, like I said, they're usually in, the early summer kind of month, so it is relatively warm.
Warmer.
But I mean, that's how I do Cali Kings, corn snakes, rhinos, everybody same way. False water cobra, all that stuff on the shelves. I think last year I had, because I usually keep supplies on those shelves too. I had to move all my shit because I had nothing but freaking egg boxes up there. And it's like, great, cool. If anybody wants to hatch, I can put my books back up there. But yeah, it was but hatchlings, I mean, the eggs are definitely longer. They're like little torpedo shaped, and those babies take up every single inch of that egg. Like, really? They come out as big babies. Usually try to get them started on fuzzies, maybe like a small hopper, but try to go a little bit on the side there. And it's just trial and error. And some years are better than others. I think my first 2 years, my first year was horrible, but you figured out what it was. It was, I tried gecko scenting and lizards and stuff like that. And, I lost one or two, but then we started getting rolling. Second year, I kind of started doing more frog scenting and stuff like that. And I got a lot better. Things worked out a little bit well with the, getting more feeding. And then last year it was just like punching a brick wall. Like they were like, no, death, I choose death and I want death. And it's like, no, like, so it's, I've learned and I've kind of, the Mad Hogs themselves have forced me to adopt the ritual of, I don't care what you want to eat. I will get it for you, but you need to pick something, okay? And I've had baby Mad Hogs start on button quail chicks. I've had them start on live button quail. I've had them start on frog scented hoppers wrapped in knobtail gecko skin. I've had them start on normal, just straight up. You're my fucking favorite if you're like the three in the group that are like, I'll eat that hopper. Goddamn right you will. Like, yes. But I've had a couple this past year that I had to get started on frog meat. And I say frog meat because I love getting frog legs at my local market. And if you look at a pair of frog legs, they have a nice, big, juicy calf muscle.
Yep.
Like and a little football. Rip that sucker right out, and that is perfect. You just drop that baby in. And it was one of those, like, getting the Mad Hogs to take that and then tricking them into taking other things. So here's the chunk of frog meat. I'm going to put this fuzzy up really close. And I thawed out the fuzzy with the frog legs. And, oh, you ate that too, idiot. Like, it next. All right. And then it was getting that and getting that. So it took a while. I had this year it took a little bit longer because I had people asking me for, like, some reason I the past 2 years I have been so female heavy, it's ridiculous. And people are like, I want a boy. I'm like, oh, of course you do. I have 6 females, but you want a boy. I had one male out of 21 babies last year.
I hate when I have that because once I get about 5 in a row, I'm like, am I sexing these right?
I did them all again 3 times.
Yes, yes.
No.
Never in my life am I as happy to find a penis.
Yes.
Than after 5. There it is. Okay,
you get the one, you're like, no, okay, I did that right. I did this the same way. And like, you just keep popping him. Yep. Yeah. So, but this year I had a good mix, but other people from last year were like, did you get a male yet? I'm like, yes, I have 4. Can I get him? You don't want him right now. You need to trust me. Yeah. You don't want him right now. I will tell you when he's ready to roll. And you just finally get to that point where when you thaw out all the non-scented hoppers and just drop them in the cages and close the cages and come back and everything's eaten, you're like, yes. Like I have done, you can finally get the angelic light coming down on you and it's all done. But that took a while this year.
I'll tell you now, you definitely have to work with a lot more sense than what, I've had to with these gray bands, obviously. The thing I will say though, and the reason that I was like, okay with taking on the challenge of the gray band is I would much rather deal with a species that scent is what I have to unlock.
Yep.
Than to have to do some continuous movement trick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like tease feeding chondro kind of thing. I'm like, man, I don't have time for that nonsense. I will gladly rub the butt of this on whatever you want me to, and especially once you find, even if, okay, they'll eat an anole, They may not eat a scented pinky yet, but they'll eat an anole. You know what
Here's
you're
an
working
anole.
with. Yeah, and now it's just finally finding, the routine to get it to finally take the pinky.
Yep.
Well, I'm good with that. It's the movement tricks that I'm like, man, I just don't want to deal with that. Don't want to deal with it.
It's the slow burn, and I've definitely moved more towards find me what you want, and I'll get it for you. And
yes.
Like I had 2 clutches of rough scale pythons last year, and half of them were like, that's a hopper, go to hell. Like I'm not eating that. But you like, it was one of those, like the python's head was totally turned away, and like I just started lowering the button quail in, and it was just like, oh, like it would just shift. You saw the click, and it's like bird, and it would just eat it. And that shifting over, because like I can get you to shift. You just got to eat something, and then I can click it over. So Mad Hog giants are the exact same way. It's just, what do you want? I'll get it for you. I've had a couple eat live fish, and I'll figure it out. My favorite thing to do would go to the pet store, get fish minnows and stuff for the baby rhinos that were giving me trouble, and then I'd get a couple bigger fish for those Mad Hogs that were eating them, and then I try to find like, what's your biggest like feeder goldfish, and I'm like, there you go, false water cobra, and it would just like swim in and grab all that stuff. So the fish can be something, but most of it, I had the best success with frog. So they start eating the frog, or the frog scented, or the fuzzy wrapped in gecko skin, and then eventually you just slowly wean them away from it, and then they all just start eating hoppers and fuzzies, and then you just right where you're at, where they just start pounding food. Yeah. The blondes were, I had 10 eggs, I had 10 babies. And I think by the time I got to the other end of it, I had 4 left, because they just wouldn't go. They'd start eating and then just be dead the next day. Like I had several that finally ate some hunk of frog meat, gone the next day. And I'm like, great. So
one of the things that I had go down with the pair that I got from Jen, and then the female from that pair just died. Mm-hmm. It was alive. The next day it was dead. There was no reason. It was one of those. Is mine were not eating. Something happened in shipping from Northern California to West Virginia that just completely tweaked them out. And they were like, nope, like you said, I choose death. And I was like, I am not letting you choose death, because if you remember, they were my redemption round.
Right.
And I was going down quickly. And when I had the velvet swamp snakes, the Erythrolamprus, they were kind of a pain in the ass to get going. And out of a act of somewhat desperation, I grabbed them from behind the head the way you would hold a snake. And I just took the mouse and would kind of take the nose of the mouse and just gently push it into the mouth. And once the mouth kind of wrapped around the head, they kind of look at you like, we're doing this? Like, what are you doing? That's going in there kind of thing. And then I would put them down, and they'd sit there, and of course, you do the infamous, freeze.
Don't move for 20 minutes.
Don't move.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. But after about a minute, they would start, it wasn't that split thing. Yep. It was like, all right, whatever. And then they would eat it. So I had the frog slurry, because I had a bunch of false water cobra babies at the time. I had all the things you feed falsies, which are the exact same things that the Mad Hogs eat. Yeah. So out of just it was one of those son of a bitch. Eat.
No.
Yeah. So I picked up the Mad Hog like it would a Typhus. Yep. And I took the fuzzy and I put it in its mouth. And then I put them down. And what was really funny is the female, which is the one that ultimately passed away, but she would bite that fuzzy like she thought it was me. It was not I'm going to eat this. It was a you go to hell kind of thing. Yeah. And then the shield, the head thing you're talking about is out. And I would put her down. And then the second her ventral scales hit the tub, boom, she would wolf down the prey item. And I was like, what the hell? So that's how I fed that snake for 2 months. Yeah. And then I always offered it the prey to see if it would eat it. And then one day it was gone. The next thing you know, she was off to the races. The male, he just decided I choose life, and he's still with me today. And he's a solid, he's a 4.5 foot adult now.
Yeah.
But that's another little trick that we could maybe throw out if people are having problems with him.
I mean, the good thing about it was like when you get one of those colubrids that's a chewer, that like its whole point is that it's going to bite you and like just like back and forth. If you shove a food item in its mouth, it's just like, yeah, and then it's, all right, I'll eat this. Like, okay, yeah, you killed it good. Yeah, you destroyed that hunk of fish. So, and
nice.
But yeah, I haven't gone to the point where I haven't really raised up any of my offspring to get to the point of like dump feeding, like the food of the bowl thing. I would usually try to wait until they got into like further into adulthood, when you start looking at them and that one rat or that one mouse doesn't seem to be enough for them, and then you just kind of do that. Because I've started doing that with my Vietnamese Blue Beauties and stuff like that. I have a boy that's a little bit on the slim side, and then I have 2 giant ass females. And I'm like, you're going to need to pack on some size here, kiddo. Otherwise, it is not going to go well. So I started like dump feeding him. So final question on the Mad Hogs, and we've got our closer question, which I do want to ask you because I'm very curious to hear your perspective. Is there anything over your time with Mad Hogs that you know now that you wish you would have known, that you wish somebody would have been like, yo, Owen, you're getting these snakes. If you do this, your life will be infinitesimally better. What would that little nugget, like what have you learned from the nuance of keeping the snakes? Or have you? I mean, there's a lot where it's like, I'll tell you right now, the worst thing is trying to get those babies into a deli cup for a show. Cause it's funny because it's like falsies, dropped close. Them, they're just like throw the cup, run all over the place, that fast as shit. I mean, I would say that it is much easier to source things like frog and other food items at places where you would not expect. Like Google is your friend. I did not know there was a cultural market near my house, like right off the road, that has everything from chicken necks, which also another great thing to feed your Mad Hogs. They love it. It's a tube of chicken. Chicken necks, frog legs, fish of all kinds, shapes, sizes, and stuff like that. For relatively nice prices. And you can just go there and stock up, and it's so much easier to do that. It's like, I'm very thankful that when I got my original pair that they gave me no trouble, because I feel like if something had gone wrong with them, that might have left a bad taste in my mouth, especially with some of the stuff that I've seen from my own offspring of like, well, thank God these guys weren't these ones. Like the pair I got originally were clearly the ones that were like, I'll eat the hopper. And like that was so much better. But I feel like trying to find what the baby will eat is so much better. So go stock up on frog legs, the weird stuff, fish, and don't feel weird about it or feel bad about it if it doesn't eat a European white mouse right out of the bag. So,
most stuff out there doesn't.
You know that? It doesn't. So, I don't care. Yeah.
And it's really something to say that there's so many species that we talk about on here, and people tune in because they want to learn how to take care of them. They want to learn because they're not a common species. And, one of the things to point out to everyone, a lot of times there's a reason that it's not a common species. It's going to take extra work. It's going to take extra time. But if you're listening to this, you're already doing what you should be doing. And that's seeking information from those who have been working with them and who have fought these battles. There's no need to go at it alone.
It's something in my head. I think Eric asked me last year or 2 years ago. So we went to New Jersey and we went herping. We found a beautiful Eastern hog. Yeah. And Eric's like, would you ever do Easterns? And immediately out of my mouth, I'm like, nah, they're frog feeders. I'm like, wait. Most of my shit is... why wouldn't I do these again? Like, it's one of those things where it's in your head of you can't do it because of this. Like, I was terrified of rhino rat snakes and mandarin rat snakes because it was, if you get it too warm, it'll die. It's like, yes, true. Don't do that. Like, that's all you have to do is just not that.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. And it's like, oh, you always hear the people who are like, it didn't eat, so I stuck it in the fridge. You did what? It's like, well, I don't think you have to do that. Just find a cold part of your room or a cold room and do that. But it's one of those things where you kind of get into your own head because it's not the formula. And of course, as you grow and learn in your herpetoculture, you're like, well, the formula sucks. Like the formula of keeping my python at 92 degrees all year, all time, and all that stuff, that's not a good formula. But then you start to learn, you're like, well, these things aren't that scary. As a matter of fact, they're the easiest goddamn snakes I have because all I got to do is put them on a shelf.
Yeah.
And that's it.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
All righty. Clint, you want to ask the final?
Let's do it, man. And if, again, if you've listened to the show, this is a question you may know already that it's coming in honor of our good friend Matt Most, the question that he proposed out there. So with everything that is going on in the hobby, the industry, whatever word we like to use there.
Discipline.
Discipline. There you go. Planet Snake Tune. Where do you see and what do you feel is the future of herpetoculture? Where is it going?
I feel that the future of herpetoculture is definitely embracing some of the off-the-cuff species, the ones that maybe aren't 8-gene animals and stuff like that. Kind of like it's a cool animal because it's a cool animal, not because of the paint job and stuff like that. I kind of see that. I also see a larger embrace of the vivarium setup. So there are certain animals that are great as pets, in the tank with the minimal stuff or in the breeding setup with the minimal stuff. And then there are other animals that may not be really accustomed to that or be okay with that. But I think that there's going to be more of an embrace of almost like the saltwater tank of reptiles, where you set up a vivarium with plants and a water feature and all this thing and all this stuff just to have it in your living room. And I have a giant vivarium in my living room with my rhino rat snakes in it. And I absolutely love it because I'm just sitting there watching TV and then a rhino's cruising or more ineptly falling from a branch because they're not, all of a sudden you hear thud and it's like, okay, there you go. But it's that kind of stuff. I mean, what would be better than having a giant ass tank with branches and lighting and a beautiful diamond python sitting on a branch watching you as you watch TV? I mean, I think we're going to start moving towards that. We're going to start seeing advancements in what people use as heating, lighting, caging, all this kind of stuff. So I kind of feel like we're moving more towards that way because I think we're beyond the point of people thinking that they can have a room full of 32 quart bins and ball pythons and make billions of dollars. Like that's gone.
Yeah.
Not happening. So now you got to find something else. And if you really love the animals, maybe breeding isn't for you, but keeping is for you. Maybe you just want to have a pet. Maybe you just want to set this up. Up here in my office where I spend most of my time, this is my prison. My roughies are up here because I want to spin around and of course she's not there. Like, normally it's a rough scale python staring me in the face. And I'm like, yes, there you are. Like that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I certainly hope that you are correct. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. There's been a lot of talk, and we addressed this head on about how herpetoculture is dying. I don't think that it's dying. I think it's the biggest bunch of crap on earth. I think that an aspect of herpetoculture may be on a downswing. But, like as the market update that Clint presented today, the colubrids are holding steady.
I would say that as with the market update and with your the show update too, we just had the Hamburg Reptile Show in its new location of Morgantown. The amount of foot traffic was insane, and I sold a ton of animals. I brought 3 gold-faced white lip to that show, and they did not come home with me. So and I sent out my 3rd rough scale python this week to somebody.
And that's an animal. How many people walk into a show looking for a gold-faced white lip?
Not many.
You know what I mean? That's an acquired taste. Well, you know what I'm saying? That's something.
My wife and I were planning on doing Daytona because I'm like, no one is going to walk into a Hamburg Reptile Show and spend money on a white lip, a rough scale, and they did. So Now I'm like, I guess I'm just going to go to Daytona now. Like, I don't have to vend it. Like, I don't. So, but that's the thing and the show went from 9 till 3, and the line was out the door around the corner to the local McDonald's till 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yes.
So, and it was one of the things that I think I did well at the show because I had a bunch of different things, because I sold olive pythons, false water cobras, white lips, rhino rat snakes, a bunch of different stuff where, it's people more along the lines, they're trying to find a fun new project. And it's no longer I have to breed piebald ball pythons because it's the only thing that will sell. It's like, well, no, that's not true. A bunch of stuff will sell, and a lot of things are there. And also, who gives a shit? Like, I don't do this for anybody but myself. I don't care if nothing sells. These are mine. You guys can have what I don't want. Like, it is, that's the whole point of it, is just, if it's fun for you and these are the animals you like, do it. And if it's something weird and kind of off the cuff, you'll be surprised how many people are interested in it with you. Like, I have not had to advertise any of the Mad Hogs I produced in 2023. They're not up on my website because it took me a while to get them going. But the second they were going, I think I went from like 20 something to, I think I have 4, maybe 3 left. Everything else is gone. Sold, picked up, shipped out. I even have people that are arranging to have them shipped to Canada because they want captive born and bred Mad Hogs. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly hope you keep producing more captive bred Mad Hogs, because the world needs as many of those animals as we can get.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, I'm also trying for the blondes again this year because I need another hole in my head for some reason. So
you just like pain.
I do.
That's it.
I do. I do. I haven't done anything too stupid recently. So more blondes. Like, okay. So,
all righty. Yeah. So if people want to find you, they want to find your animals, all that jazz.
Yep.
Before I say where can they find you, I kind of got ahead of myself here. Yep. I do want to take this moment with our 50th episode to let everybody know that if you live under a rock and you're listening to this podcast and you've never listened to MPR, they're on their 511th or sorry, 500
something like that. It's 5 something something. Yeah.
10. Literally 10 times what we have. So, go give that a listen. And I will honestly say this podcast exists because of MPR, because when I got back into herpetoculture in 2016 as a professor that's got to come up with material, and I'm trying to find like anything that I can get my hands on that had some meat on the bone, I never listened to a podcast. And you need to know, Owen, that I cut my teeth on podcasts listening to you and Eric back in the days when the podcast wasn't like balanced at all.
It was terrible.
There were like squeaky things. No,
good.
But I walked around. I lost a lot of weight listening to NPR because I would rage walk around my neighborhood and listen to that. Yep. And there are definitely some moments where people had to be looking at me because I also walk at night because that's normal. And there'd be like some part and I would just stop and I'd rewind it on my phone. I'd just stand like a telephone pole like, what did they say? And it was, so no, but then of course because I started at episode 1 and worked my way.
Oh, that's terrible. Don't do that. Through. I don't recommend
it was great.
That. Yeah.
It was
started season 3 for the love of God. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh. So anyway, so I I'm not going to say I know it's a we, want to thank you for all the work that you and Eric have done. And we need to get Eric, I get it. He loves his Australian snakes.
Trying.
We're going to sneak a colubrid in there. Well, was he talking about mountain kings or something at one point?
He was talking about mountain kings. Yeah. He was talking about indigos. I'm like, both good. Tell me what
we know a guy who has some.
I have multiple species right now.
I was trying to. He was over my house the other day, and he goes, "Oh, these are the rhinos." I'm like, "Yeah, well, yeah. Why? You want one?" He goes, well." I'm like, "Listen, I'll set up the tank. You just feed them, and then when they're eggs, call me. I'll come get them. All right? Like that's what we got to do." Mm-hmm. And he's, "Well, we'll figure it out." I don't know. I'm like, "Okay, all right, fine." I'm like, "What colubrids are there in Australia?" It's like none. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for all that you've done. And with that being said, now that we've done this the proper way, where can people find you?
Website is rogue-reptiles.com. I have a bunch of stuff up there right now. everything from carpets to roughies to my one lone little remaining white lip. It's the last one. And then so I think I still have I have some rhinos, I think. That's another one that's like in the last 2 weeks I've sold all my rhinos. And it's like, okay, cool. I guess I'm not keeping any of those back. So but that's there. And then Instagram is rogue_reptiles. I'll usually post everything up there. If you are looking for something that, you know, you think or you want to talk Mad Hogs, you can always drop me a line through the website. And yeah.
All right, sweet. So, it 50th episode is now come to an end. I know that Clint and I plan on being here for as many more episodes as we can possibly have. So
you get to the 500,
been, 10 times is what?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll be 60.
That's what Eric keeps saying. I'm like, 13 more years. He goes, I'll be dead. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So, thank you all for listening to us, especially those that have listened to all 50 of the episodes. I know that Clint and I have every intention of being here, like I said, for quite some time to come. And Colubrid Fest, send us your ideas, please, on talks. I have some ideas in my head of what that Saturday is going to look like. But I'm open to any kind of interpretation. We just want to make it the best event ever because Colubrids need their own, dedicated. They're the most diverse group of snakes on frickin' planet Earth. They should have something dedicated to them. And we want to make this the best thing we can for you, for other people. The other thing we need you to do, it exists now. It's not going away. So what we want you to do, please, is just start talking about it and let people know. And then follow us, share the information when it gets out there because we need this thing to work for our community. So if you want to find me, I am Dr. Crawdad at Instagram. I am Dr. Crawdad on Instagram, Zach Loafman on Facebook. And then students, I'm always looking out for new grad students. So that's that. And we'll do more science on the next episode because I've got quite a bit to talk about on that front. All right, Clint, where can I find you?
You can find me, Clint Bartley, on Facebook. You can find me also on Facebook at Metazotics. Instagram, Metazotics LLC. You can always email me at metazotics@gmail.com. And please check out our website, metazotics.com. And if you have not liked the Colubrid and Colubroid Radio Facebook page, do it. Share it. Get your friends to, because that will be the first place everything gets posted for Colubrid Fest. As updates continue to happen. So just stay tuned. Stay there.
Yeah. So whatever time of day it is, morning, evening, afternoon, or night, hope you're having a good one. This has been fun. Later.